Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today on this wonderful Saturday for another edition of our Self-Directed IRA Saturdays. My name is Andrea Chassin, and I'm an IRA specialist at Quest. Super excited about today's class. We have Kevin Gandhi from ZT Corporate. He's going to be giving us a masterclass on the auto industry, your next investment vehicle, probably pun intended. But thank you for being here. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd like to know and welcome everybody. Let's get started with, of course, our disclaimer that we always do. Questr's company does not provide tax, legal, or investment or structuring advice of any type. We don't endorse any products, services, or investments of any type. So everything shared here today is for educational purposes only, and all parties are encouraged to consult with their attorneys, accountants, and financial advisors before entering into any type of investment. So very important there. Let's talk about a little bit about what a self-directed IRA is shortly for those of you who are new and joining us for the first time. A self-directed IRA really is like any other IRA that you can have anywhere else, except here at Quest, we focus on private investments only. So instead of your typical stocks, bonds, ETFs that you can do with your more typical self-directed IRA at a typical or more traditional custodian, here at Quest, you can do investments. And here's some examples: real estate, residentials, commercial property, fix and flips, land, purchasing land. This is all with your IRA. You could do private entities, LLCs, cryptocurrency, real estate investment trusts, promissory notes, whether secured or unsecured, basically loans, mortgages, convertible notes. So those are just some examples and some of the most popular investment options and investment types that our clients do here with us. Here is a QR code that you want to scan if you want to have a consultation and book a complimentary, of course, consultation with one of our IRA specialists here at Quest. If you have any questions, we're always happy to point you into the right direction, explain anything that you need to know, the process, etc. I want to talk about the Quest Expo a little bit before we go ahead and continue and get started with today's class. We're very excited for our next Quest Expo. Whoever was there last time a couple of years ago, it was a blast. It was amazing. So much networking, great networking, so much amazing education. It was honestly altogether an amazing time. And this year we're coming back with an even better show. So for those of you who are going to be in Irvine or can make it there, and which is close to Dallas, Texas, June 27th to 29th, you don't want to miss this. And today we have something very, very special just for our Easter weekend here. This is not going to be available for too long. So if you want to buy an expo ticket, this is going to give you 50% off, which is awesome. This is a coupon code that you need to use. We're also we just put the link in the chat if you want to purchase the expo and take advantage of this coupon. It's going to be hop to it, and it's going to give you 50% off. Pretty good. I don't think we're ever going to see this again before the show, before the expo. So make sure to do this. I also want to play a little clip on our last and our previous expo, so you guys have an idea of what it's going to be and you can prepare for it. So if you can please play that, Mac. There's a little bit of
a lot of business from the Quest event. I talk to people, I network with people, and it actually becomes business after the event.
Okay, that was really short, but short and sweet is what we wanted to show you. But without further ado, let's bring up Kevin Gandhi today for so we can get started.
Andrea, thank you so much for that introduction.
How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm looking forward to the Quest Expo myself.
Yes, we're super excited. It's going to be bigger and better this year, so we can't wait. Um, I want to start to, this class a little bit different this time and start asking you a couple questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
But yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the investment vehicles that you're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically, I'm excited to talk about the auto industry, a topic that a lot of us are very emotional to. We love our cars, and so talking about how the auto industry, from a consumer side, we look at it from purchasing vehicles. But I want to go into a deep dive on the behind the scenes, how dealerships run, how you can be a part of investing in dealership or even investing in stocks and whatnot.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So are these deals that how long do they run for?
Well, a stock on the stock side of things, you can be invested in these for as long as you wish. But on the private side, generally these deals can be anywhere from 2, 5, 6, 7 years. Our deals in themselves are anywhere from 3 to 4 years.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started here with your presentation? If anybody has any questions for Kevin as he goes through his slides, feel free to put them in the chat, but I'll let you take it away, Kevin.
absolutely. Thank you. All right, well, let's hop right into it. So, a little background on myself. My name is Kevin Gandhi. I'm a partner with the firm ZT Corporate based out of Houston, Texas. We're a private equity based firm. We specialize in healthcare, automotive dealerships, and commercial real estate investments. And we've done numerous deals in the automotive space over the last 10 years when we first initially entered into the space in 2014. And we've done about $150 million in automotive deals specifically. But as a firm, we've done over $500 million in capital raising for the deals that we've done. Now, I want to tell you today, I'm very excited about sharing with you all my expertise on the automotive space. And here are a couple of dealerships that we've acquired, some in Fort Walton Beach, some in Georgia. A lot of our dealerships are here in the South. But as a PE firm, we look at things like an investor. So we saw the automotive space and we saw many things that we liked about it. And before getting into the space, there was a short list of items that it checked all of the boxes for us. The automotive space is really unique. Unlike real estate or any other operational business, the automotive industry has huge stability and demand. Where, unlike countries around the world where they have a huge reliance on public transportation, the US relies on individual transportation. And that plus brand loyalty, we have folks that love their Toyotas or folks that love their Lexus brands and many others, gives you repeat customers. You have a BMW fanboy, he'll continue to buy BMWs. Alongside that, there's many diverse revenue streams in the automotive space. And beyond just buying a car, people think that dealerships will make money just from selling a car. On the contrary, dealerships make very little money selling cars, maybe a couple of $1,000s. But I'll talk about all those different, unique items that maybe we didn't think about from the consumer side. At the end of the day, the margins are really good from the dealership space as well. So, how do car dealerships make money? I mentioned to you new car sales. Well, most of the time when the dealership comes and sells you that vehicle, they're not just thinking about, okay, we're going to sell this car and we're going to push it to the customer and they're going to move on. No, the next thing, you're sitting in the dealership in the financing, warranties. These are other avenues in which the dealership space can make money. You may have, not many folks may have a credit union that will give them the loan to purchase their vehicle. Traditionally, a consumer will walk in and look to purchase a car and get the financing done through the dealership platform themselves. And the dealership will have a negotiated rate with the bank on the back end, and they will make that spread of financing over the course of that loan. Secondly, they're usually selling you a warranty for your tires, your wheels, windshield, many other types of warranties. That's a huge area of margin for the dealership space. And the third thing is Service. When you traditionally buy a car brand new or even used, that dealership is asking you, hey, your next 3 oil changes are on us. But inherently, why are they doing that? They want you to build up that relationship with the technician, Joe, or the service advisor, Joe. And Joe is going to be in touch with you over the course of those 3 years and build that relationship so you come to them on an ongoing basis. And that revenue stream of service is huge. Not to mention you have body shop and repairs, and then there's other manufacturer incentives. So for a dealership, if they're hitting all their marks in sales and service and surveys and things like that, the brands themselves, the manufacturers like Toyota, Lexus, Honda, they will give incentives to the dealerships on the back end for hitting those different metrics. And so all of these items combined drive such big numbers to the dealership platforms. Now, I want to give you guys a snapshot of where the market is today. And then we'll dive into EVs, where the market is going. Are you going to be buying your next car online or on your phone? But it is important to know, where is the market today? Because over the last 4 years, the market has changed dramatically. Before, you would go to a dealership and it would be a lot full of hundreds of trucks and cars and every different paint and having different options. But nowadays, you're seeing yourselves order a car, or there maybe just be 30 cars in the lot. And so when the pandemic hit, we saw a huge plummet of vehicles. We saw that many of the dealerships were trying to get rid of the cars as quickly as they can. Well, in turn, it took a lot longer to rebuild all of that inventory. And we're just now starting to see inventory stabilize back to a healthy level. So on front of your screen right here, you'll see in the green is the national average of around 76 days. And around 12 months ago, the industry average was roughly 30, 35 days. And that is extremely unhealthy, in the sense meaning that it would take a dealership only 30 days to move all the vehicles on their lot. Now, you'll see that some of the brands themselves are much below the average, like a Toyota or Honda, where you won't be able to see that many different vehicle options, or you won't even be able to negotiate on that vehicle. So the brands that may have a lot more inventory, you'll see that there will be an ability to negotiate heavier deals, or you'll see more incentives, which we're starting to see come back as well. But 50% increase in volume compared to where we were 12 months ago shows that the dealership space and the car industry is going back to a normalized level. I don't think that we'd ever see the times of going in and buying a car, choosing one from 1,000 on the lot. We're seeing the dealership space kind of take more of a European model, where you're going to be purchasing online or ordering that vehicle and getting it delivered in a couple of weeks, versus going in and purchasing the car directly. But this is great news for buyers. So any of you that are looking to purchase a car, this is great news for all of you. But what isn't great news is the average vehicle transaction price. You'll see here that it was growing at a typical 2 to 4% rate over the course of since 2010. But the pandemic introduced a whole new variation of costs, and that's amongst all things. The auto industry was no exception. And in 2020, the average car price was, call it $37,000, $38,000. Now you're seeing a 25% increase in just 3.5 years. And the sad thing is that in the US, there's around 280 models of vehicles. And that's from everything from cars, trucks, sports vehicles, every single brand and every single model. There's around 280 different cars, and only 9 models are under $25,000. And that's a big issue, meaning the affordability is getting out of reach. And that's just because the cost of production, the cost of labor, materials, the whole slew of things has caused vehicle prices to come up. And just 3 years ago, that same 280 number, we had 30 vehicles that were under 25K. So that gives you an idea of where the market is heading. The auto manufacturers themselves are actually phasing out these lower end vehicles. So the times of buying a Honda Civic for $22,000, those days are gone. So this is the new norm. And you probably all witnessed that as well. So this slide right here is going to show you the industry average vehicle price alongside rebates or incentives. Now, traditionally, at least I know that whenever I was going to purchase my vehicle a couple years back, in my mind, I knew that I wasn't even going to pay sticker, right? We all have that mindset. Okay, the car costs $45,000. I'm going to offer them $38,000 because I got to get a deal. Well, during the pandemic, the incentives and rebates, those all went out the window. And we haven't seen any incentives in a long time, up until recently. Incentives are starting to come back, but what isn't going to come back is the price. The MSRPs are not going to drop. Unlike Tesla or Lucid or any of these newer brands that sell directly to consumers, you don't see the traditional auto manufacturer just slashing their price. I think Tesla did maybe 4 price slashes over the last 2 years, and that just helps them drive numbers quickly. But a traditional auto brand can't do that. And it's purely based on the fact that they have many dealership bodies that are representing them, like ZT Corporate. We own many different brands across the country. And if Honda decided to shave the price by $10,000 overnight, it would throw a wrench in the system. So in order to combat that and play accordingly with the market, we introduce rebates. And so that can be directly from the manufacturer themselves, where they'll give a discount to the consumer at the time of purchase, or that can be from the dealership as well. If they need to move certain inventory. And that's where the current status of the market is. And so knowing that, I'd say that with rebates coming in the next 6 months, I think that would be a really great time to purchase a car. So if anyone's looking to purchase a car, I know I've been advising a lot of my friends, hey, over the last 2 years, even though I own my company, we own dealerships, I say, hey, the market is really tight. So buying a car right now, there's amazing models and amazing technology. But if you're looking for a deal, wait for incentives to come back. And we're starting to see that. So over the next 6 months, those are going to be some great times, and you'll see some great deals. And more specifically on the EVs. And speaking of EVs, prior to the pandemic, prior to 2020, anytime any of your friends or your colleagues or even yourselves, I know we have a lot of EV drivers because they have earned a big share of the market. But prior to 2020, anytime we thought about an EV, we just thought of Tesla. I'm going to go buy an EV. Someone would say, you thought they were buying a Tesla, because there wasn't any real players in the market. And many of the manufacturers didn't take the electric vehicle space very seriously until they saw how much market share Tesla was taking. And to their credibility, Tesla has done a phenomenal job making vehicles. But one thing to note was any of these EV brands they've introduced, whether that be Tesla or whether that be Lucid or Rivian, any of these new brands, they would just have $100 reservation and you would place an order until delivery. And what that caused was a real bloat in where orders were. And so that caught the attention of the legacy manufacturers like Toyota, GMC, and those others. And they saw how much orders were being placed. And so the likes of Ford and these brands went headfirst into the EV space and expecting that all of these orders would be fulfilled. And this was right at the time of 2020. And with a bloat of inflation, car prices, when you had placed an order for a truck, let's say a Ford F-150 Lightning, you initially placed that order for 38,000, but it wasn't going to be delivered for another 2 years due to supply constraints, inflation, and whatnot. Now that order that you made for 40,000, that car just went up to 55,000, and that was a big issue over the last couple of years. And so the industry expected that from an EV standpoint, that all individuals be purchasing new cars as EVs. The market expected that the adoption rate would be very high based off of Tesla's track record. They thought that the EVs themselves would replace all vehicles, and the charging infrastructure would be able to support it. Many of the sales that were done in 2000 up until 2015 were only Tesla, but there wasn't a track record behind that to show what that future looked like. And the market itself was very bullish. But at the end of 2015, we saw that the cars that were sold in totality of all cars sold in the US, EVs accounted for 1%. And the market expected that it would take a lot of market share from traditional ICE or internal combustion engines over the next couple of years. But what actually happened? Well, we saw that the early adopters of EVs were the folks that like to be on the bleeding edge of technology. Those individuals all purchased their EVs. The individuals that many of the folks that wanted to purchase EVs, it was out of their price point. Folks that purchased Teslas initially can remember that the Model S was the first variant of EVs that was introduced. Same thing goes for the likes of Lucid, Rivian, and others. The models that they initially are releasing were the top end, the higher end models. So these were really out of reach. These are 60, 70, even up to $80,000 vehicles. And so the only people that really could afford that are the folks that are super high income earners. It was out of reach, way beyond what the average vehicle price is, which was around 35,000. And so that is where the market hit a grinding halt. It was out of the price point for the vast majority of Americans. And the second thing was that the charging infrastructure was very behind. What we noticed was that individuals that lived in urban areas, so cities that could implement charging networks relatively quickly, those are the areas where people were buying these, West Coast and Northeast. But the South, the folks that are driving on a regular basis, on a long distance basis, they were not interested in purchasing EVs just due to the lack of a charging network. But those two main barriers of entry, which were price and the charging infrastructure, we do expect that to really change over the next couple of years. The cost to produce, the R&D cost behind producing an EV has dropped dramatically. The cost of producing these batteries has dropped down dramatically. We expect to see the introduction of a solid state battery to really improve the technology of these cars surviving cold weather climates. One thing is, I'm not sure if anyone can comment on some experiences around this, but having a electric vehicle, and even in Texas, if it drops down to 20, 25 degrees, here in Houston it does sporadically, we'll see phantom drain, which will drop the battery maybe 5 to 10% without even moving the vehicle. And so cold weather areas, you didn't see a high adoption rate up in the north. And we expect that the technology improvements there will help with preventing that, extending the range, and then also seeing the market expand the charging network. And that's one of the most crucial components, because as an EV owner, if you don't have a charger at home, you end up waiting at a charging station for 30 minutes just to get in line. And then you have to charge your car for another 30 minutes. We expect that cars to be charged within a 10-minute time frame. That's when you'll see some major mass adoption. And then we'll see more government incentives that'll push the EV adoption rate. Right now, you have that $7,500 government incentive that was phased out, but there are going to be some additional incentives coming from the manufacturers themselves that haven't been able to move some of those F-150 Lightnings or even those Model 3s and Model 4s. But the biggest driver is until that car, that EV under a 30,000 or even a $35,000 dollar price point comes, we don't expect to see mass adoption. But EVs are definitely the future. But let's talk about what the future looks like. So while EVs themselves are coming along in terms of technology, we're seeing many of the other brands introduce various models. We'll have more options for the consumer. Up until about 3 years ago, you had a couple of options, whether that be a Tesla, there was a couple of Kia brands, but with the major conglomerates of Ford, Toyota, etc., coming into the space, that'll give the consumers more options. That'll streamline some price competition as well. We expect at the same time that the charging infrastructure will incentivize consumers to come into this market space. But until then, hybrids are actually something to kind of bridge that gap. Hybrids have been around for decades. They've been reliable. They give the consumer that extended range because of these gas prices that consumers face. That's usually when consumers look at EVs is when gas prices go up. But when gas prices are down, we see EV sales go down. And so hybrids are expected to bridge that gap while the other EVs are being produced by the major manufacturers. This also is going to see brands coming from China. BYD is going to be a huge player in the market space on the EV side of things. Another thing that I want to mention is the current presidential administration actually just released a new bill that is pretty much placing in force the EPA, the environmental emissions of these vehicles. It has, over the course of the next 5 years, is dropping the environmental emissions of the vehicles that are currently being produced. And it's going to be a big challenge for ICE or internal combustion engines to meet these limitations on emissions, which is inherently going to push these brands to convert more to EVs and to produce more EVs. And so a lot of things are at play to help the market shift towards this EV adoption, but we expect that to be over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. Now, what does the future of car purchasing look like? Many of you have noticed different apps. Auto Trader and these websites have been around for years, but the pandemic introduced a new way for us to purchase vehicles. Traditionally, we've all hated going to a dealership and spending 4 or 5 hours with a sales guy and just causing brain damage. But the pandemic introduced a way to get a car directly to your front door with platforms like Carvana and different online resources. Because traditionally, you just go on Auto Trader and you'd see a car on there that you like. It could be in Houston or it can be an hour away from you, and you drive there, but you still go and purchase that car from the dealership. And so the pandemic, you have that car now, you're looking at pictures of it and purchasing that vehicle, and it's delivered directly to your door. One thing we noticed was it was not on new car sales. It was really traditionally only for used car sales where this emergence of a new platform really excelled. And while there's a lot of good things that came from it, like consistent price streaming, because you can hold a dealership honest or even a different online platform, they're all competing for your dollar. And so the consistency of pricing was there. Whereas traditionally you can get a deal at a dealership and it can be $4,000 or $5,000 more or less than down the street. This online platform really created a consistent level of pricing, but it was only on the used car sales side of things. And people said, well, you can purchase directly from Tesla, why can't, or Lucid or Rivian, why can't I buy a car directly from Ford or GM? There's a lot of lobbying in place, dealership agreements that are ironclad documents that have been around for um, decades that do not allow dealerships that have existed in a current state prior to 2015 to sell directly to consumers. So what that means in a nutshell is any new brands that come up, they can sell directly to consumers, but your legacy automakers, they cannot. They have to go utilize a dealership platform to sell that vehicle. And that's important to note because people always ask me, well, dealerships are not going to exist in 5 years. You see what Tesla has done. Dealerships drive so much economic stimulation, not only to that community, but in terms of jobs. And, many of our dealerships employ hundreds of people, from the sales staff to the technicians to the service advisors, et cetera. So it provides a big impact to the community, which would be stripped away if they sold directly to consumers. But that's not to say that the future of car purchasing is only going to be in a dealership space. We do expect there to be more of a streamlined approach, more consistent pricing, where it'll be dynamic. Maybe the use of digital showrooms with virtual headsets, but new cars themselves will be purchased directly from the dealership. But one big flaw that we saw from the utilization of a Carvana or one of these vending machines, which is a very neat idea, but it didn't work out, is the dishonesty, or I should say the lack of transparency when purchasing a vehicle through one of these platforms. They were looking to move as many, and on a used car basis, the condition of that vehicle is the most important thing when you're buying used. And when you buy a used car vehicle from a dealership, you can always go back there if you have an issue in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That dealership is still going to be there. Now, if you're purchasing a used car from an online platform like Carvana, and you just look at pictures and it just looks good on the exterior, but you don't really get to pop open the hood until it comes to your front door. And there can be an underlying issue that you're not completely aware of. That is where the big gap is on selling directly to consumers. So you can find great deals, but just be very thorough in the process of purchasing a used car. In the car industry, we always say that you have to feel the wheel. The car purchase is such an emotional purchase for a consumer. It's the second largest purchase for many Americans, behind their home. And so it is extremely emotional. Getting behind the wheel will seal the deal. And so we believe that dealerships always will have a place. Even Tesla and others have showrooms because they know the impact of getting behind the wheel before purchasing that car. Now, investing in the auto industry is something that is very exciting. Traditionally, people would be investing in stocks, but we've seen stocks like Tesla make crazy amounts of money. But beyond just investing in the auto industry or just the brand themselves, there's other areas that you can invest, whether that be into charging platforms or into battery technology. These are all, we're on the cusp of a new wave of the auto industry in terms of growth and economic stimulation. We really haven't seen a huge advancement in the auto industry in the last 20 years since 1980, when we had the introduction of the safety airbag, which we know today. But this is the biggest advancement in the auto industry in a very long time. And we see extended growth over the next couple of decades. Many cars are going to be replaced with these new standards. We saw California say that all new cars have to be EV by 2030. And that's quite ambitious because I think they had a brownout last year, actually. But we know that's the direction we're going. But on a private basis, unless someone, unless someone has $100 million to purchase their own dealership, which is a very hard industry to actually get into. It has a very high barrier to entry. You can't really purchase a dealership. And so we utilize platforms like private equity companies like myself here at ZT Corporate, where we go out and we purchase dealerships in the country. Our dealerships are located in the South in states like Florida, Texas, and in Georgia. We're looking to purchase a new dealership here in Alabama in the next couple of weeks. That's going to be a Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and Chrysler dealership. And it's a great opportunity to invest into a local business where you won't have that volatility of a stock that may be a Tesla, which can trade like crypto nowadays. Or so look for syndication groups that can give you an opportunity to participate in this unique environment, because it is going to grow. And so whether you participate with a group like ours or a different private group, being on the cusp of a new wave in the auto industry, I think that you'll see it's a good hedge in terms of your portfolio, as opposed to doing some oil and gas where we know that's going to be a stable market in real estate. This gives you operational influence. And so with that being said, that's everything that I have. I'm looking forward to answering your questions here in the chat. And thank you very much for joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was really insightful, and thank you for sharing that with us today. There's a couple questions here that I want to go over. Maybe you can go over. I know Azar has been tackling some questions as well in chat.
Great.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
For those of you that are
maybe
on the
you
call,
have.
I'm sorry, real quick. For those of you that are on the call, Azar is my colleague and partner at ZT Corporate. So if he's answering questions, know that he works alongside with me at ZT Corporate in the auto industry as well.
Excellent.
So he's well qualified to answer any of the questions that you may have asked.
Excellent. Let's start with this one, if you don't mind, from Rajesh Patel. What is your exit strategy with these dealerships, and how do you base your valuation when selling a dealership?
That's a great question, Rajesh. Nice seeing you here on this, and thank you for joining us. It's a good question, because in the auto dealership space, we're seeing a lot of consolidation. I'm sure many of you that have seen the dealerships in your communities, they have some family last name. In Houston, we have Sewell, we have Don McGill, and you'll see that they have every single brand dealership right after one after another: Toyota, Honda, GM, Subaru, etc. These have been owned for decades by these families. And why haven't these families given them up, right? Because they know that these have been very high cash producing assets. But in turn, we're starting to see a lot of consolidation in the market, as we have seen over the last decade. And that's purely because the fact that sometimes they don't have a succession plan for the dealership, or they're looking to divest out of it after running it for generations. And so the exit strategy for us is we're looking to continue to add rooftops over the next 5 to 10 years, and we could potentially take it public, or we can run a larger exit to a private-based company like a Van Tile or a Group 1 who is looking to expand their portfolio. We're currently a top 150 dealership group in the country, and we want to continue to expand and hopefully be in that top 20 here soon.
Awesome. I did have a question. When you mentioned when someone has a bunch of money and they want to buy a car dealership, and you said it was like high barrier or something like that. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, generally speaking, the auto industry is not an industry in which one can just go and purchase a dealership. The brands themselves have high criteria for them to be represented by a group or an individual. They need to have experience, but beyond experience, you having a point, what we call a dealership location is called a point in the industry. They are very they'll scrutinize whoever comes in because many of these are owned by families. They're already allocated before selling out or opening a new point in the market space. And so they don't let any group or individual open up a Honda dealership. I mean, to tell you the truth, if I could have 20 Toyota dealerships, those are printing presses, I would, but those are coveted assets. And to be able to purchase a Toyota is a great opportunity. And we're fortunate that that's going to be, that's the case for us here in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Before we go there, we have another question. Why is this an opportunity now, like better opportunity now as compared to in the past? And I'm assuming—
Great question. Yeah, great question, Fair. I think that industries have cycles, and the cycle that we are in for the auto industry with the emergence of EVs means that consumers are all purchasing new cars, the technology that's going into the space. I think with that being said, you're going to participate in the next cycle of the upside on the auto industry. We believe that the auto industry really hasn't changed much over the last 20, 30 years. Really, there may be incremental adjustments to those vehicles, and car sales have grown. But consumers, what we've noticed is the cars in the US are getting bigger, they're getting larger, and they're getting more expensive, and consumers are still buying them. And with the wave of EVs to come, you can participate in the financial benefits, whether that's through the public market or privately in a syndication.
Awesome. And I mean, by no means we're here to deal pitch at all, but if you can briefly tell us about your new project that ZT is doing right now, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working on acquiring a couple of dealerships located in Alabama. Our strategy is to purchase dealerships in secondary markets. We're not interested in purchasing dealerships in the likes specifically of Houston, but maybe 45 minutes or an hour outside of Houston, because that allows us to command a lot of that market share. And so we're looking to purchase a Honda, Toyota, Chrysler, and Nissan dealership right about 45 minutes outside of a major metro in Alabama. And this dealership acquisition is going to be occurring next month. We're raising some capital in the form of prep equity. And so if you're interested in learning more, I have a QR code. This will give you some information on myself, the firm, as well as what we do as an organization in the auto industry, and maybe how you can be a part of that.
Excellent. And then there's a question from HD34. Kevin, do I need to be an accredited investor to partner with you?
Yes, absolutely. So all of our investments do require the investor to be accredited. Yes, so.
Awesome. And then a question from CK. How can you compete with bigger groups to purchase good quality dealerships?
I love it. CK, that kind of question comes up a lot. And it's specifically because, think about this, a family that has owned a dealership for three decades, let's put it. And this family has owned it, and the employees that have worked with him for 20, 25 years, that technician that's been with him his entire life, and maybe even his son is working with him. If he were to sell to a large private equity group, let's say a Group 1, or some other larger institution at AutoNation, what traditionally happens is they will come in and they will clean house, and they will get rid of employees and implement their different strategies. That's what we've seen. And that is really important for the previous owner to not let that happen. And so they're willing to take maybe a discount or lessen money, let's say half or maybe 1 or 2 multiples less on the sale for the sake of their employees. And then secondly, the larger dealerships or the larger groups are looking at purchasing dealerships that are in primary markets, not these secondary or these terrestrial markets. And so those two combined give us an edge.
Awesome. If anybody else wants to ask Kevin a question, now is the time before we close off here. I want to quickly bring up my slide for everybody who joined a little bit later after I went over this. We're having a promotion right now, and Quest Expo tickets are half off right now. So this offer won't be for too long, and it's a limited offer, like you say here, for the first 150 registrants. So go ahead and take advantage of this if you're thinking of joining us for the Quest Expo this year. That's it. That's all I wanted to remind people. But thank you, Kevin. That was awesome. Really insightful. Like I said, it's always great having you guys here at Quest talking to our audience. So thank you for joining us. But
yeah, definitely. And if anyone's interested in purchasing a car, if you're looking for a car, you need any insight on purchasing a car, you can shoot me a text, or you can call me, or even email me. I'd be happy to help you out in terms of connecting you with our dealership, or even just giving you some pointers in where to look for purchasing a car. Yeah.
Yes, I'm for sure going to do that because I need a new car.
I got you.
But thanks again. And thank you everybody who joined us today. I don't see any other questions, so feel free to also scan Kevin's QR code if you want to ask him something, or if, think of something later on today or during the week, you can contact him directly. But thanks again, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Everyone have a happy Easter weekend. Thank you.
Yes. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.